Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. As you can see, we have light. I absolutely love and adore this time of year because we no longer have daylight savings robbing us of the morning light. So I'm able to get down here, get a vlog done and off to work and get to see the sunrise at the same time, hopefully. So just behind the Opera House there, we'll have the sun rising. It'll come up at about 6:10 today, so hopefully I'll be able to capture the transition and the phases which show off and highlight Sydney when it's at its absolute finest. I think I've said before that I absolutely love, and I think that the best season in Sydney is autumn, where we get crisp mornings, where it's not too breezy, and it's an absolutely wonderful time of year. I can see the breeze coming in from the west southwest, and there are two magnificent flags atop of the harbour bridge, the one and only Australian national flag, the flag that we salute, the flag that represents Australia, and we've also got the New South Wales state flag up there as well. I understand that they're considering, or there is a plan in place to include a third flagpole there to hoist and parade the Indigenous Aboriginal flag. I guess my dream for a greater Australia is not to have one, two, or three flags up there on the harbour bridge, but to have 150, 200 flagpoles going from one side to the other, and each flagpole hosting and presenting the flags of the various nations that are represented in this multinational country, one of the greatest multinational expressions that the world has ever seen, and have every flag of every nation that is represented in this beautiful country. Anyway, let's get on and talk about a book summary today, in my normal form. I've got a beautiful book to talk about today, and it details a topic which is a tricky topic, and the book is entitled The Drama of a Gifted Child by an author known as Alice Miller. And it's a book that was published in 1979, so it's been out a while now. But the advice, of course, like a lot of books, is timeless and very, very interesting, and it gets you thinking. It'll get us thinking about our past, about our children's past, and about the past that our grandchildren may get to experience and pass on in positive ways and in maybe negative ways to their children. So let's move on and see what this author has to say, and see what life hacks we can glean from this OPE, this other people's experience, this text, and see if we too can leverage some learnings and become better at what we do, and hopefully provide an environment and an opportunity for our children and grandchildren to leverage and to use as stepping stones for their life. So the author kicks off with a bit of a quote just to position her writings, and she says that we can't change the past, but we can change ourselves. We can most definitely change ourselves, and we can change how we see, remember, and focus on our pasts. Now, at the end of the day, we have the power. We have the power. There's a ferry over there about to smash into that speeding small boat, and that's what the blaring noise was. So we can change. We can change how we see the past, so that we don't allow it to weigh us down, and we can use it as a learning, as a stepping stone to help improve us, but more importantly, to help us become better parents and grandparents and better people in our society, where we can help others, help the situation, rather than magnify it and bring back terrible memories for them. The author here invites us to a call to action, saying that you don't need to continue to live in your childhood, your oppressed childhood. And I guess the writings here are directed to people who may have had a challenging past. And the author is very, very clear here to say that all children, regardless of how good their parents were subjected to, experimentation is one way of putting it, because no parent comes with a book on parenting. Each parent needs to learn and to implement and to express their parenting style, and parenting styles vary by family, by culture, by race, by religion. There's a whole stack of things that shape our view of the world from a parental perspective, and it can be shaped in a positive and empowering way, or it could be shaped in a limited, disempowering way, because the author here is clear and says that a lot of people use the parenting style that they received when they were growing up, which could be good and could be bad. It depends on the impact and how it was received by the child. But the author here is very clear in saying you don't need to continue to live in your repressed, oppressed childhood, fearing and avoiding dangers that may not be real. They probably weren't real back in those days when you were growing up, and they're probably less real today. But the author says that there are people who still live in fears that have been passed on to them, fears, uncertainty and doubts that they have inherited from their families, their fathers, their mothers, their uncles, their aunts, their grandparents, their siblings, their friends, their work peers, their school classmates. There are a whole stack of things that have influenced people's lives, and what the author here is saying is that a lot of people can't shake that childhood. They can't shake their childhood. They can't snap out of the imagery and the fears that were generated, because we need to understand and to appreciate that life is full of illusions. Not everything that we think of, not everything that we think that we experienced, not everything that we lived is real. And the more of an intellect that you have, the smarter you have, the smarter you are, I guess is the best way of putting it, the more imagination that you have, the more vivid your imagination, the more intelligent you are, then chances are the more deceived you're going to be. because you're going to be making up bogeymen, you're going to be making up situations, you're going to be creating and banking away fears, uncertainties and doubts into your conscious and subconscious that may be to your advantage or they may be to your disadvantage as you grow up and traverse life. The author here says that even those who were praised as children, even those who grew up and had heaps and heaps of praise thrust upon them, have deep issues, have problems where they are surrounded and dragged down by depression. Because the depression arises once the drug of grandiosity fails. And there are people who are plagued by anxiety, by guilt and shame that they have carried through their lives from their childhood. Things that are of no consequence, things that they shouldn't be worried about. And yet, as we say, and as what the author says here, they are burdened by those things which impact the decisions they make, impact the life that they live, impact their worldview, impact what they focus on and what they dwell on and where they dwell. You know, some people dwell in the past, other people dwell in the future. And very, very few people dwell in the present, in this present moment. Because at the end of the day, this present moment is going to be your history. This present moment is going to take you to your future. And a lot of people miss out on making the most of the here and now because of that childhood story that keeps on revolving and repeating within their heads. So the first formal point to come out of this book is where the author talks about a term called individualization and autonomy. I got it out. Sorry about that. One of the tricks of being live on Jim's 5am Club is that the bloopers get published. But this basically says that for you to experience autonomy as a child, your parents needed to have experienced autonomy when they were growing up in their families. Because what happens is that our life shapes us. Our parents, our grandparents, our environments shape us as children, and that shaping shapes the way we become parents as well. So as a child, if you didn't receive the opportunity to be an individual, to have autonomy, to have self-reliance, and all of those key building blocks, then chances are that as a parent, you're not going to be passing on those valuable lessons to your children. I remember years ago, and my wife reminds me about this all the time, that she had a friend of hers who reminded my wife Paula and said that, you know, when children are growing up, there does come a point where the mother and the father, but more so the mother, needs to let go of the apron strings ever so gently to allow the children to grow and develop and to become their own person, to make decisions, to face consequences, but to do it their way. There's a book that I read many years ago which also suggests that even eagles need to get pushed. in order to soar, to fly, and to become great. And the analogy there basically is that, mothers, fathers, parents need to let their children grow and develop, need to let go of the apron strings, need to push the children out of the nest in order for them to grow and develop and to live their lives. So some very powerful lessons here, but regardless of what a parent does, it all depends on how a child receives the parental guidance. You can have 2 or 3 different children and try the same thing on each child, and it may have a different impact, a different outcome. So parents, as we said here, who were repressed as children, tend to feel deprived in some ways and continue throughout their lives, according to this author, to search what their parents couldn't and didn't give them. So you end up becoming your parent, you end up marrying your parent, is a term that we hear oh so often. And this author here reminds us that these things continue to happen and continue to keep on evolving and revolving within a family environment. The key message, I guess, from the author is that all children, as part of their growth and development, need a number of elements to help them develop in a healthy and productive way. And it's interesting just to read this and to hear it. And I remember going to a parenting session many years ago where the lecturer there said to all the parents, have you ever listened to what your children have said? Or is it one-way traffic? Are you telling them all the time what they need to do? Do you understand your children's needs? Are you helping your child grow and develop and express their needs and express themselves? Or do you want your child to be an expression of who you are, knowing very well that each person is different and each person has a different mission, has a different calling in life? Sometimes by getting too involved with children and their development, you're actually causing them damage by not allowing them to be who they're destined to be. So the author here reminds us, as part of their growth and development, children need a number of things to happen in their life, and they need to be respected. Each child is a person, and as a person, they need to be respected. As silly as it may sound, children have the birthright to be respected. They need a thing called echoing. So you need to be able to echo back to them the things that they need. So you need to pay attention, and you need to be attentive to their needs. And if a child says something or needs something, there needs to be some sort of echo of that, some mirroring of that need, so that a child needs are provided, and a child understands that it belongs and that it is a functioning element within a functional family, rather than a person who's living in a dysfunctional environment. So they need to be understood, they need understanding, they need sympathy, and they need mirroring as well. So a number of things that are highlighted here in the book to, I guess, help parents understand a little bit better what they need to do, who they need to be, to try and provide the right environment for their children's growth and development. And not be too much in their face, but by the same token, to not be too out of their face, so that a child feels disconnected, unloved, and unneeded. Because children need certain things in their life in order to be and feel fulfilled and to enable them to grow. And it comes at different stages, it comes in different amounts and doses. Who knows what it is, but we just basically need to be there and to try and offer it in the right dose, which I guess is the challenge, the great challenge that all parents face. And the bottom line is that children can only experience and express the feelings that they know. And that's why it's important for each and every one of us to provide an environment that allows children to learn expression and feelings and all of those things, to see how we respond, to talk about their feelings, to express their feelings openly and without judgment, and to feel comfortable expressing feelings, even if they're unproductive feelings. You've got to get it out there, and then you've got to talk about it. But you've got to feel it in order to be able to deal with it. So, and to understand, this is a key point, key learning from this book, that our experiences come in different shades, different varieties, and different cultures. And there are generational issues. There are issues in parenting that get passed on from one generation to another, from one cultural context to another, from a race to another. There are so many things that get passed on, which in many ways it would be better off for them not to be passed on, but people don't quite realise and are not in a position to swap things out, especially the things which are dysfunctional and unproductive and disempowering. As my mother says, there are things that are being handed down to me from her generation that were handed down from her grandparents and parents and culture. And my job is to pass these on to my children, pass on the things that serve us, and if there are things that don't serve us, then to look at ways of swapping them out with things which are more productive and more serving, but not losing the element and essence of one's culture and family lineage. So poor parenting, unfortunately, is something that gets inherited generation after generation. And you get to see it, I guess, from time to time, where you get generations of families or people within the same family that seem to have the same issues, one generation after the other. And it's a pain that continues to haunt a family, regardless of how much money they make, regardless of how educated they become. There are issues that just continue to haunt a family, a culture, a race of people. And a lot of that is because of the way the people were brought up, and to a certain extent how certain elements of their makeup were not developed at the right time in the right doses. So it's important to understand that we can break this generational issue. We can make people better at being parents, so that people can have a more productive and wonderful childhood. Because as we know, it doesn't matter how much money you come across and how successful you become. A poor childhood, a bad childhood, can never be rebought, can never be relived. So having a wonderful childhood is a tremendous gift, and it needs time, it needs dedication, it needs love, and it needs a village, it needs an environment to foster it and to support it and to pass it on. Because all children, all people need a sense of home and security and familiarity. We need to be providing an emotional climate and environment for our children to, for them to be nurtured, for them to grow and develop in a positive way, which is going to impact not only them, but their children and grandchildren. Each of us have an ability to influence and to link together the three generations that came before us to the three generations that follow us. That's our job. And to think that your job is to be an individual and to do your own thing, and to have your own views, is folly. Because at the end of the day, we have a purpose. We have a mission. We are a small but important and very strong link in a long chain, a long family chain that has been woven and has been stitched into the fabric of our culture, our society. And we're part of a bigger thing indeed. And in order to help make that fabric or keep that fabric clean, strong and functional, then we need to invest. We need to invest in our parenting style. We need to invest in our children and to give them the wonderful gift of time, and to understand that every single child is gifted, and those gifts need to be enhanced, to be leveraged, to be developed, as we said before, by providing the right environment, providing the right amount of love, by bringing them up with the joy of Christianity, with the joy of religion, and ensure that people continue to feel as if they belong and are part of something which is important. So thank you everybody for joining me on this episode on my YouTube channel, Jim's 5am Club, where we went through another book, and we've been able to showcase and highlight this beautiful city of Sydney on this magnificent, crisp autumn morning, where we haven't quite seen the sunrise in all its magnificence, but we've seen the busy toing and froing of the ferries across the harbour, and have been able to go on a wonderful journey where we talked in detail about a book entitled The Drama of a Gifted Child by Alice Miller, a book that was published in 1979, back in the days when I was just 19 years of age. So thank you once again. I'll grab my stuff, I'll head back to the train station and head off to work, and just I hope I get a few people viewing this episode, because it is quite powerful. I've done over 1,300, I think this is going to be 1,314, my 1,314th episode of my 5am Club. And I've done over 1,000 book summaries. My focus at the moment is on content, on just generating and pushing out and publishing as much content as possible. I must admit that looking back over my time, I am a little bit disappointed that I don't quite have the following and the viewing that I was expecting and hoping. But that's a fact of life. I know that the material that I'm putting together, that I'm publishing, is indeed very powerful and very useful. And there will come a time where it will get discovered and it will get leverage. At the very least, it'll be my legacy to pass on to my children and grandchildren, who may one day be able to listen and to see how beautiful Sydney once was. And there we go. We've got the sun now rising above that low cloud just behind the Opera House, and showing another beautiful start to the work week and another perspective of Sydney life. How beautiful is it? Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful productive week, and wishing everybody all the very best on this beautiful Monday morning. Bye for now.